Okay. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Debbie Schwartz, and I'm here with Becca Blauch. If you guys can do me a favor, just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay, and then Becca's going to talk, and we're going to make sure that you can hear her. So, okay, I see a thumbs up for me. So, Becca, say hello, and let's see if people can hear you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody can get in. And I see all the thumbs up in the chat. Thank you. So while we're waiting for a little bit more people to settle in, I'd love to know, obviously, I'm assuming most people here tonight have a senior, and let me know if you've gotten offers yet for your students. If you think you're going to be figuring out whether you should be appealing for need-based aid or merit, and how many offers you might have already gotten for your students. That would be helpful to know. And if you don't have offers, like somebody said, not yet, that's perfectly fine. And it's good that you're here to kind of understand the process, because your student will be getting offers pretty soon. So great. Wow, lots of people. Okay, well, this is going to be really helpful for everybody who has offers, because you can kind of start the process, and for other people who haven't, you're just going to learn and be prepared for when they come in. Okay, so tonight I'm going to go through some slides. I'm going to talk about the financial aid appeal process and how you would handle it for both if you have already received some need-based aid, or if you received merit. Slightly different approaches, and what you want to do to go back and talk to the colleges. So a lot of people, hopefully you guys know me. I'm Debbie Schwartz. I'm the founder of Road to College and the Paying for College 101 group. And I'm here tonight with Becca Blauch. Becca has been with us for almost a year. She does a lot of things, helps with our marketing, helps with our operations. But actually, before she came to work for us, Becca worked in the financial aid office at Chatham University. So she dealt with this process all the time. Becca, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, so I worked at Chatham University in their financial aid office for about 5 years or so. I did mostly worked with current students and new families that were selected for the verification process of the FAFSA, which some of you might have heard about. And then also I helped to filter in all of the financial aid appeal letters that would then go on to the committee to be reviewed. So I was kind of the first step in the process before scheduling the actual review of the letters for families.
And as we go through the slides, Becca's going to kind of give a few stories that she has dealt with throughout her years. And I think it kind of adds color to kind of the process that we're going to talk about, because she's dealt with real life situations on the other side of the fence, and seeing kind of how the colleges have dealt with families' requests. So I think that would be really helpful. Okay, so let's get started. Oh, you know what? Before I do that, I'm going to stream this. I'm going to get this going to, okay, I'm not going to do it. I don't have time. I was going to send it to Facebook, but we'll upload it tomorrow. Okay, so tonight we're going to go over what the financial aid appeal process is, because it is a process, what you need to do to appeal, when you should be appealing, and what you can expect. So I mentioned it is a process, and I only want to bring that up because for some schools, it actually, is somewhat formal. They might have a form you need to fill out. They might have steps that they outline that they want you to follow. So, the process of the financial aid appeal are the steps that are taken to ask the college to reevaluate either your financial aid situation, or reevaluate the money that the college has been willing to already offer your students. So it can be either for merit scholarship money or for need-based aid. So how do you know when you should be appealing? And again, it's slightly different for merit scholarships versus need-based aid. But the first thing that I usually do when somebody shows their or gets their award, if it's need-based aid, is I check to see what percent of that family's need the college actually met. Hopefully, you might have already looked at these numbers before you applied to the school if you were a family that needed need-based financial aid. But you want to see if what the college is telling you, or telling the public that what percentage of need that they meet, did they actually meet that percentage for you? They don't have to meet the same percentage as what they display on the on their common data set or any other types of records, but you want to actually check. And then if they are not meeting the same percentage of need, I would actually ask why. And one possible reason why they might not is that your student might, although that your student might need financial aid, they might not have been as desirable academically. So, but you want to understand, did the school meet your financial need? Because if they did, you can still appeal if your financial situation has changed. But if they met your financial need and your financial situation hasn't changed, it's not likely that they're going to give you more need-based aid. So you want to look at those numbers first. The second is you want to, if your student has gotten merit scholarship money, you want to make sure that you've understood all the requirements for merit. And the reason I bring this up is there was a case or a situation of a family a few years ago, and the student received merit scholarship money, but she received the second tier of merit scholarship money, and they were expecting that she would have received the first tier, the highest amount. And when it came down to the real details, the way that the family was calculating the student's GPA was different than the way that the school calculated the GPA. And obviously, the way the school calculated the GPA was the number that they used to determine what aid level or merit scholarship money that student would receive. She actually appealed it still and was able to get more money, but you just want to make sure, did your student really take advantage, or did they follow all the requirements that were needed to get that merit? And we do a session about what merit scholarships are. We usually do that for a lot of junior families. And what we also, during that session, explain is there's different types of merit, right? There's what we call automatic merit, where every student is considered for a merit scholarship, and it's usually the schools look at their academic GPA and if they've given in test scores, and so that's a little harder to know what the exact requirements are. But for some specific competitive merit scholarships, that's where the requirements are important to make sure if your student really followed all the requirements that were needed. And then finally, another source, and hopefully a lot of people on here have maybe already looked at it, is we actually have a tool. I'm going to type in the website right now. It's either, you can either go to comparecollegeoffers.roadtocollege.com or just compareoffers.roadtocollege.com. And what we've been doing for about 4 years is crowdsourcing families' offers. So you can it's all free. You set up an account, you fill out information about your student, and it's all anonymous. And then you share your students' offers. You put in the school, you share if it was need-based aid or merit aid. We started asking last year if your student also submitted their test scores, and then you're able to see any other offers that students have shared at the same school. So I'll go a little further into the slides, but I'll also pull up the website so you can see what it looks like. It's really helpful. So you get a sense, if you entered your students' offers in there, you can see, you can look by EFC range. So you can look at families that have a similar economic situation as you. You can see what state the student is from. You can see what test scores, if they shared their test scores or not, they would show up. If a student didn't share their test scores for that school, then it would just be blank. And then you can see what scholarship amount they got. And if your student looks like they got an amount that's not similar to another student that had a comparable profile, then that's a reason that you would want to ask for more money for merit. I will say, I don't think that it's really wise to use the information in compare offers as part of your appeal letter. But it's a good source to kind of get a sense, basically, what the offer that the school gave you, was it fair? Was it in line with all the other offers that similar students received? So I would definitely use it for comparison purposes. Okay, oops, wrong way. Nope, sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. And too fast. Okay. So, what are some other reasons why you should appeal? Honestly, we are just seeing that sometimes colleges, as their first offer, and I'm going to say this phrase again, it's not, we've been saying it all along, that colleges are a business. And so in any sort of, marketplace situation, in any sort of negotiation, sometimes the first offer is not always going to be the best offer. So the college might have given your student some sort of merit, right? But it might not be the best merit that they can give. And Becca, I love, maybe you can share some of the stories, your information you had about the budget that was set aside just for the cases where people were appealing.
Yeah, so at our school, and honestly at most universities, they have a certain budget of money that they've set aside, knowing that families will appeal for additional aid if other schools have offered more money than them, or in the case that, their financial circumstances have changed from the FAFSA. So it's really, the appeal process, it's a little tricky because it was really a first come, first serve. The earlier you got it done, the more likely you were to get a higher amount, just because at that time there were more funds available for the students. Also, you wanted to really show the school that you were interested in them and that you really wanted to go, except for the finances were in the way. And if, they could raise it by a specific amount that you're asking for, then you could fully commit. Then they were more likely to award the aid to you versus a student who submitted an appeal and was just like, hey, I want more money, like no real details. They didn't put a lot of effort in the letter because they only had so much money to give. So they were going to give it to the students who were clearly invested in going to the school.
So most schools do know that students are going to appeal. They have some budget set aside. So that goes to the concept that they might not have actually offered the, most money that they're willing to give your student, because if they can get away with a slightly lower offer and the students end up accepting, and a lot of families don't even realize that they can, come back and ask for more money, then, the school's better off. They were able to get that family in basically at a higher rate, and they didn't have to offer as much money. So, and you're going to see as we talk through, really, I believe that there is no harm in asking. It's just kind of the way you're going to go about asking, or your student's going to go about asking. So another reason, of course, why you might want to appeal is maybe you looked into compare college offers and you saw, and you can't really understand why a student that looks very similar to your student didn't get the same dollar amount, like your student got less than they did. Definitely, again, I wouldn't necessarily use the information and reference that you saw that in compare college offers, because I don't think it's valid enough for them, but you can basically say, I believe that my student, might be eligible for more money. A third reason, and this might be a little hard to detect, but if you suspect that there were some errors in your FAFSA or CSS profile, then you absolutely want to appeal, because that would impact what your EFC is, and that would impact what the school awards you in need-based aid. It might be a little hard to figure out, whether or not you've had errors, but what's a little tricky with the CSS profile is you never really know what your calculated EFC is, right? Because when you fill out the CSS profile, you don't get a final number like you do on FAFSA. And some most schools, there are some schools that actually give you that number, their calculated institutional version of the EFC. They'll give it to you on your award letter, but a lot of times they won't. I cannot promise, but I encourage, if you suspect or you just want to have a better understanding of how the college decided how much money to award your student, and this would be for need-based aid, and you had to fill out the CSS profile, I would ask, what was my EFC based on your calculation? Because every college that uses the CSS profile has a slightly different version of how they've calculated the final EFC. And a big impact, which varies from school to school, could have been how they calculated your home equity in the calculation. So again, those aren't very evident. Some schools actually double the value of your home equity in their calculation. Some do it 1.5, some just do it at the flat rate. So that's a very valid question to ask the financial aid office is, can you tell me more about how my EFC was calculated, particularly if they were using the CSS profile?
I would say too, even with the FAFSA, if you're not sure that you made an error, but something seems off, or like you see the EFC and you think like that number doesn't make sense, you can call the office and say like, hey, this doesn't seem right to me. And they'll look into the FAFSA deeper for you and just see like, oh, this item might be put in there wrong, and then contact you about anything that you would need to submit to fix that. So they will look through it for you. It's not all up to you to figure out if you made the mistake.
Right. And one particular mistake, which you might not even realize, it's not a mistake that you made, it's sometimes how the system works, is if you've done an IRA rollover in the year that in the tax year that the FAFSA is based on, if you had an IRA rollover and you used the DART system, which was the automatic system that pulled in your tax information, I can almost guarantee there's probably a mistake. So so just keep that in the back of your mind for anybody who used DART and you had an IRA rollover. Please pay much closer attention to what your EFC was, and that's, again, as Becca said, very valid to call the financial aid office and ask them to pull it up and check, because once you've submitted, and once you've actually used DART, you can't see your numbers. So only the financial aid office can pull it up and look at the numbers. Okay, and then I guess we'll talk about what special circumstances are. It's kind of like its own category, and special circumstances relates to need-based financial aid. Oops, sorry. Okay. So Becca, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about professional judgment and then what some of these special circumstances mean?
Yeah, so the professional judgment, it's really a financial aid appeal for need-based aid, where they'll review the FAFSA or even like the CSS profile that you submit. Some schools will call it the change in circumstance. So that and professional judgment are really used like interchangeably. The financial aid office is the one that would be manually making updates to your FAFSA based on your circumstances and the documentation that you submit to them. And those changes that they make could affect your EFC and lower it, which would qualify you for additional need-based aid. The types of circumstances that fall within professional judgment, the most common, I would say, are the loss or change of employment, the divorce, separation of parents, or a death of a parent or spouse. And a lot of the time I saw the excessive out-of-pocket medical expenses. So those are ones that aren't covered by any kind of insurance. Those are things that your family had to pay out of pocket, and you have the invoices showing that you made those payments, but they weren't something that, is a normal, just like dental bill. Like, oh, I had to pay $100 for a filling. It's like pretty major costs that your family had to endure during that year that's not reflected in the FAFSA information. There's also the child support reductions or change. You can contact the financial aid office for their policies on that, what you would submit. The change of marital status for dependent students, that's more of a rare situation, but I have seen that where during the school year or over the summer, a student gets married while they're in college, and then they become an independent student. So the FAFSA, if it's already submitted and their marital status is not married, it's going to look like they're dependent. The parents' information is being counted, but if they did get married, the office can update that for them so that then they're considered an independent student where the parents' finances aren't being looked at. They could qualify for additional need-based aid, and also as independent students, you qualify for additional federal loans that dependent students can't get.
So the thing I wanted to emphasize is that when a family, and again, this is related for financial need-based aid, is going through this process, it's okay to actually, I encourage them to use the term professional judgment, because first of all, it shows that you're educated on the process, and it also kind of gives the financial aid office the sense that, you know, you want them. So professional judgment basically is a right that Congress gave financial aid officers, that they can override information in your FAFSA, they can change your EFC. So this is within their capabilities. And if any of these circumstances happen, you want them that they go to that length to be comfortable to override information that you might have submitted originally in the FAFSA. And the other thing I just wanted to point out and emphasize is, so FAFSA is based on information that's from your taxes 2 years ago, right? And so you're looking now at your current situation. So it's very valid if something might have happened. Maybe you had, a change of employment. You might have unfortunately lost a job. And if your income has significantly changed as compared to the tax year that the FAFSA is based on, which in this case would be 2021. No, 2020, because this was done in this was for FAFSA that was done in 2022.
Yeah.
So
you always have to think out that math.
I know, I always have to think a little bit too. So and I will tell you, the situations that I've helped families with, most likely in this case where they're asking for professional judgment, is income has significantly changed. Potentially one spouse has, lost their job. The other, unfortunately, there might have been a death of a parent. And then the other one that comes up a lot, and it's almost like families wait for this because they have no other way of explaining their expenses, is related to medical expenses. And it can be medical expenses, of a sibling. It could be medical expenses that family is contributing to, maybe related to a grandparent. So usually there's a lot of special circumstances that involve excess medical expenses, because there's no place on the FAFSA or the CSS profile to explain those expenses that might significantly, be burdening, financially burdening a family. So, and then the last thing I wanted to point out is for families who have gotten financial need-based aid, and any of these circumstances apply to you, then absolutely you're going to want to appeal. But you could be a family that didn't get any need-based aid, but again, your situation changed from 2 years ago. So the financial aid office is looking at your FAFSA or your EFC. It's based on 2020 information, and based on that, they might not have given you, or you might not have qualified. But if any of these things have significantly changed and you're in a different situation now, it is very fair to say, can you please reevaluate my situation? Can you look at it with professional judgment? I feel like my financial situation is very different than it was based on the year that the FAFSA used that information. So you don't have to have
Sorry, it is 2021.
Oh, it is 2020. Okay.
Yeah, because it's for the 2023, 2024.
It's the 2023 school year. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So anyhow, just want to emphasize, even if you haven't received financial aid, but your financial situation has changed and you think because of that, you might now be eligible, then you should bring that up to the school.
Yeah, and the other thing I got a lot of questions about, if you do one of these and say you get additional aid, the FAFSA EFC went down, we will get parents that call and they would say, you know, hey, I got a new job. Can I update the FAFSA? You don't need to tell them, like, there's no change that you have to make at that point. You get to keep that aid and that EFC for the year. So you don't need to update it back to a higher amount.
Oh, that's
once they do this. Yeah.
Yes. Keep that to yourself, and unfortunately, it will probably catch up.
Yeah, it will show later, but for that year, you get to keep the aid that you qualified for after the professional judgment.
And I know that there've been a ton of questions that have gone through. I'll scroll back, but I just saw one that asked, do we have to wait? Oops, sorry. Do we have to wait until there's an acceptance to start this process? You do. You can't go to the school before your student has, well, your student has to be accepted, and then you have to find out what the package is that the school is offering you. You can't go to the school and ask for more money if they haven't even offered you anything yet. So you do have to wait until you get the numbers.
I will say, with the professional judgment, while you can't ask for them to do it yet if they're not admitted, you can contact them and explain the situation that you're having, and they'll let you know what kind of documents you'll need to gather for that ahead of time. So you could start working on getting everything together if you know that that's something that you'll be moving forward with, which is helpful just when you have to gather a ton of different papers, depending on what your situation is.
And one last thing, although I've already kind of moved on to merit scholarships, but going back to the professional judgment and need-based aid, so important to show documentation. So whether if it's for medical records or medical expenses, sorry, you need to show, you need to have bills, you need to have something from, the insurance company to show what you've been paying out of pocket. Or if your income has significantly changed, you need to, either show a W-2 or pay stub. You can't just kind of tell them what the situation is. You got to prove to them what has significantly changed. Okay, so merit scholarships. My recommendation is you have to, hopefully your student will get at least 2 merit scholarships from 2 different schools before you go back to appeal. You can ask for more money if your student hasn't maybe gotten money from anywhere else, but it's a better situation if your student has an offer from another school that you can use as leverage. We suggest, but this is a little bit late in the process, this is for families who are putting together their college lists in the junior year or fall of senior year, that to sometimes put on a school on their college list, what I call a leverage school. It's a school your student is interested in, but the purpose that they're really including it on the college list is because they know that that school might be more generous in merit aid or merit scholarships than the school that they truly want to go to. But it's good to get that offer of a very generous merit award to use as leverage against maybe another school that they're more interested in. If you were to do that, you can get some of the information from the government IPED's website, and it shows you what they call peer schools. So the different schools that colleges view themselves as competitive against. And so that's something probably would have been best to do when you were building your college list. But what you want to do when you're comparing merit offers is not look necessarily at the dollar amount, but you want to look at what the award is as a percentage of the cost of attendance. And I'll show you an example on the next slide. So, and Becca, maybe, I don't know if you want to give any examples of people who have kind of come and asked for additional merit, but they, didn't really have, an equal offer someplace else.
Yeah, so there was a couple different types of appeals we would get. The one is the student who has like a bunch of other appeal letters for equivalent cost schools. And then there was some students who didn't really have any other award letters, and that's okay. You don't have to have other schools' offers to ask for merit. It does help if they're more competitive and you want to try to show like, hey, I'd like to go here, but these schools are offering more. But if you don't have that, you can write a really well-written appeal letter explaining your interest in the school, definitely stating the amount of money that you're asking them to grant in addition to what you've already received, and really just like showcase the student. Well, this would be coming from the student, but the student really showcasing why they would make a good student at that university, you know, what makes them special, any kind of other achievements that they've gotten that aren't necessarily reflected on the normal admissions application. And if their GPA on their transcripts, or they took a SAT, ACT again and have higher scores, you definitely want to tell the school about that, just so that they can see if they can reconsider based on that as well.
So exactly what Becca said. If your student has had any academic improvements since they sent in their application, then you want to make the school aware about that, you know, as part of the appeal for more merit. If their GPA has significantly improved compared to when the transcript might have been sent out from the high school, if your student might have taken another ACT or SAT and done better, maybe they've gotten an award that they got after the application was sent in. Maybe they, won a contest of something. Maybe they just had some other big achievement that didn't come until after their application was submitted. So absolutely, you want to highlight any of those newer things that couldn't have been included in the original application. And then the other thing you want to kind of think about is get a sense of how desirable you think your student is to the college. So most likely, if they got merit money, they are, more towards the top of the, quartile or distribution of students. But just verify. So, I'll give you an example. And I saw some of the questions that came through a little earlier about early decision. I actually was already contacted by a family who got an early decision award. Actually, it was financial need, and the college gave the student financial need, but they didn't give them this up to the percent of need met that they usually advertise. And quite honestly, the reason was that although the student was accepted, he wasn't a top student compared to other students that they normally accept at that school. So technically, he was what we called gapped. So he was given money, but he wasn't academically one of the stronger candidates. They still accepted him, but they didn't give him the full amount. That is a very tough situation to be in because that was early decision, and they probably should have and could have figured that out ahead of time. But that might be the case that in regular decision or early action in some of the offers that your student have gotten, they might have gotten money, but they might not have gotten the top money because they are not the strongest in the cohort that school is trying to attract. Doesn't mean you can't go back and ask for more merit scholarships, but just understand, have a sense of where your student might fall relative to other students that school has taken in the past. Okay, so here's just an example, two examples, one for need-based aid, one for merit scholarships. So, when you have your information, you want to, again, from a need-based.
You want to listen to this with me?
Oops, somebody, okay. From a need-based perspective, understand what percentage of need met does your offer represent. Easy to calculate, you look at, well, I should say, it might be easy. The thing that's actually tricky about these award letters, and I encourage anybody who's having trouble understanding their award letter, to email us. You can email us at support@rhodescollege.com. If you're willing to share your letter, we will just read it with you and try and help you decipher exactly what it's saying. Or, depending on how comfortable you are, if you want to share it in the Paying for College 101 Facebook group, you can white out, anything that's personal. There are a lot of people who are very knowledgeable about financial aid letters and can help kind of decipher. It sometimes is a little confusing about what money in the letter is actually need-based aid money, what money is merit scholarship money that doesn't need to be repaid back. And then it's sometimes kind of confusing about what money is loans that's not clear. So again, if you have any confusion about how to read your financial aid letter, reach out to us, reach out to people in the community. We will help, because that's the first most important place to start, is to make sure that you're reading everything correctly and you understand what money is being given to you. So let's assume you are reading your letter properly and you see that that you've been given, $15,000 in need-based aid. You take the $15,000, you subtract it from, you want to compare that against what your actual need is. Your need is your cost of attendance minus your EFC. What is left over is technically your financial need. That is what colleges are looking at to determine how much are we going to help this person with this need that they are demonstrating. And so in this case, the 15,000 was 37% of the student's actual financial need, which was about 27,000. So, this is just an example. We didn't kind of actually specify a school, but if that school actually on average meets 50% of need, then they gapped this student. They didn't give them the full 50%. And that would definitely be a starting point to go back to the school and ask why. Why weren't they willing to give the full amount when they said that they normally give most students 50% of need met? So that's the example for need-based aid. For merit scholarships, again, I mentioned that you want to look at the percentage, right? So in the example here, College A gave the student $15,000. The cost of attendance at that school is $60,000. So they really gave them a 25% discount, and the net cost to going to that school is $45,000. You compare it to College B, that college gave an 18% discount. But even though they gave a lesser discount, their net cost is also lower because their cost of attendance started off lower. So this is a little tricky because a college, if you kind of present this, would say, well, it depends which college you want more money from, but College B will say, well, our net cost is still less than the college above that you're telling us they got more money from, so we're still a better deal. Technically they are, so they may or may not be willing to give more money. They may or may not be willing to match the other school. I recommend just being completely transparent with colleges, meaning if you're going to share an offer from another school, I would share all the information because they're going to know. So I would share, what your net cost is, what your what the merit scholarship dollar amount was that was offered. But basically, you're in this case, you're sharing because you believe your child, deserves more. And actually, we're going to talk about who's actually writing this and whose voice this should be in. But the student believes that they should have been granted more. So there's a few different pieces for why what you would say to a school if you wanted more merit scholarship money. I would definitely, if there's any academic improvements, highlight that. You want to make it so clear, or your student wants to make it so clear why they really want to go to that school, why that school is so important to them. And so the college is going to look at this and say, and you want to also, the student wants to make it clear that even though potentially another school might have had a better net cost, that they still believe that they want to go to the school that they're asking more money from. instead of the one with the better net cost. So you're kind of a little bit playing to the emotions of the school, and you also want to show them demonstrated interest of how interested the student is in attending. And then finally, you want to also kind of make it come across that if they give what you're asking, and we're going to talk about that how specific you should be. If they give what you're asking, that the likelihood that your student will accept that offer is really high, because they want to feel that if they give more money, it's for the purpose of really making sure that that student is going to say yes to the school. So you kind of want to get that across, that if they can meet what you're asking, it would make your student so happy, or your student will be so happy, and they will absolutely want to attend as soon as they can. Becca, any other thoughts to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll start to get to it on another slide when we're talking about asking for specifics, but I would say a lot of schools, it's 50-50 to me if they have you do it through admissions or the financial aid office. For the merit aid, it kind of depends on which office is determining merit aid for students. But if you reach out to the admissions officer that you've been working with, that you were showing demonstrated interest to during the process of applying, and you explain the appeal and you talk to them, even if you're doing it with the financial aid office, letting the admissions counselor know and telling them how much you want to go to the school if the financial situation can be better for you, because they're really a great advocate. Like a lot of them, they'll be reaching out to the financial aid office on behalf of you as well, trying to get them to do something to help them get their student to commit. So they are kind of a whole nother person that's on your side to use towards your strategy of getting additional merit aid.
Becca, how about also sharing about when you received appeals from a student that were written by a student or were written by a parent?
Yeah, so appeals, we ask for merit aid from a student. For the professional judgment situations with like family finances and parent loss of job or divorce, we obviously don't expect the student to write a letter about their parents' income situation. So those are okay for the parent to write. But for the merit aid, the schools really want to see it come from the student, because they are the ones that are going to be attending. They want to know that the students are interested and that they're putting in the effort to get that additional money to attend. At our school, because everybody would send them to me and then I would filter them on after reading through them, which not every school will do. I like to read them just because if it wasn't what I knew they were going to want to look at, it was kind of like wasting everybody's time. I wanted to make sure that if the student was taking the work to appeal, that they were going to do it the right way. If a parent wrote a merit appeal letter, I would usually recommend to them, that it comes from the student. And now I think a lot of the time then parents would just change it to the student's voice and sign it student, which is fine. I mean, the school doesn't know any better that the parent's the one that wrote that, but it should be coming from the student for a merit appeal.
So somebody's asking, do you actually include a copy of the competing school's merit offer letter? I don't think you have to. I think you could just state the information. That's good enough.
Yeah, some schools I know, like at Chatham, they did ask to see the appeal letters from, or the merit offers from the other schools if they were mentioned in the appeal letter, just to see like the cost comparison, because a lot of the times schools don't have like a clear breakdown of first year student costs on the website. That's easy for the school to find when we're doing the appeal to compare. It depends on how in-depth the schools go, because we would look at the cost and then the amount of aid that school was awarding towards their total cost of attendance versus how we were awarding. So we really broke it down to see the difference. So it's really, the school will let you know if they want to see them or not.
So somebody is asking, how comparable a school does it need to be for a merit aid comparison? Of course, the closer in competitiveness of school, you know, the better. But I'm honestly just under the belief these days that there is no harm in trying and asking, right? And, you know, I'll say it towards the end of the slides, but the only harm is that you'll get a no, right? So that you have a very little downside and a very big upside. You know, a lot of times they might just appease you, and even if they offer an extra $1,000, that's $4,000 for just asking. And a lot of times it will be more than that. I will caution parents that they're not going to probably, on the merit aid side, a school isn't going to all of a sudden give you an extra $20,000 a year. You know, you're really talking in the ballpark. Majority of extra money offers are probably, I don't know if you guys heard that, I'm having really bad thunderstorms, but the majority of the offers are probably in the $3,000 to $5,000 range. Maybe, you know, a little higher than that if it's an excellent student that they really want and another school has given them, you know, a great offer. But again, if you got an extra $3,000 a year over 4 years, it's $12,000. You've got an extra $5,000, that's $15,000, all for the effort of pulling together this information and having and working with your student and writing a letter. So so again, just to emphasize what Becca said, for merit appeals, I would absolutely have the student write the letter. It doesn't mean that they're really doing it all by themselves. You can help them. We actually have, and we'll probably send it in a follow-up email, we have like an outline of some sample letters of how you can approach it. But basically for merit appeals, the student wants to make it, like, be really thankful for whatever money the school has already given the student. Then they want to explain why that school is one of their top schools, what they're going to get out of it, why they feel that they're a really strong fit for that school. Then explain, you know, the other offers that they might have and that they're comparing against. And then I do think it's good to be specific on what the dollar amount is that you're looking for. Becca, I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about when students were specific or when they weren't specific and what happened.
Yeah, so if you're specific, and like Debbie said, schools for the most part aren't going to be awarding, you know, an additional $20,000. We did have people that would ask for that much, but the schools had full tuition scholarships that were awarded to a certain number of students. So that would have brought their rate up to that amount, and that wouldn't have happened. But when you're asking for, you know, I would see a lot of 5,000 to 8,000 was like the range of requests. That doesn't mean that they all got awarded 5,000 to 8,000, but they would get closer to that amount if we could, versus a student who just sent in a letter asking for additional aid and not asking for an amount. A lot of the times, if they were awarded, they would get about 1,000. So they would just get some money because they weren't specific in how much that they needed to make the commitment. So it's always better to start a little bit higher. It's kind of like haggling for something.
Start a little bit higher, but don't be unrealistic.
You know, you start with your offer, knowing that the school might counter with a different offer, but that's better than coming in with no plan.
So somebody asked, oops, sorry, the questions are scrolling by kind of quickly. Oops, somebody asked, so are you saying that the likelihood of success in obtaining significant adjustments is greater with need-based appeals rather than merit-based appeals? Actually, I'm not saying that necessarily. I don't know what the possibility is of getting significant money for need-based appeals. That's going to be in a need-based appeal for need-based financial aid. It's going to purely be dependent on what changed in your financial situation and how significantly that change impacted, you know, your finances. So it's all going to come down to that and your documentation. For merit, a lot of students will get money, but again, it's not going to be like a doubling of what the school offered. So I just want to kind of set expectations that, if your student was offered 15,000, it's not likely that the school's going to come back and say, okay, yeah, we'll change that to 30,000. They'll probably take a 15,000 offer and maybe, bump it up to, like Becca was giving an example, a 20,000, 22,000, potentially, 8 to 10,000, but that would be, more on the unusual side.
Kaden!
Yeah, Debbie, are you able to mute?
Yeah, got
yeah,
that.
okay.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm going in the wrong direction again. Sorry, guys. I'm not sure that we have that much more to share. But let me just see if there's anything else.
I have seen a couple questions come through about do you email it or mail it, and to who? It really depends on the school. So when you find out what their process is and what forms they might require to do the appeal, they'll let you know if there's a specific person to address it to. You usually don't have to mail it. You can typically email the document over, just because, mail takes a while and you never know with the school where it ends up in the right office or not. But they'll let you know who to address the letter to.
That was great. Somebody just gave this story that last year their students' appeal went from 16,000 to 25,000. That is great. I mean, not saying it can't happen. I just don't want everybody to assume that that's the normal case of it happening. And as the question about when should you start, if your student has some offers now, particularly if they've got 2 merit offers, I would start. As Becca said, there's a budget and kind of, on the earlier side, they don't know how many people are going to ask, so they might be more willing to, give out money, and it would just be nicer to get it over with faster. And then potentially you could use whatever offer you might have appealed, and if that was higher, you can then use that for the next school if your student gets into and hears a little bit later to another school down the line. So somebody's asking, does having twins going to the same school or different ones typically make a difference? Yes. I mean, well, you're having multiple students in school at the same time as of this year still gives you an impact on your EFC. So your EFC is lower than if you would have had one student at the same school. But in any case, I would bring that up as a situation for a reason why you might be appealing, because you obviously have a lot of financial burden with 2 going to school at the same time. And I would actually even bring that up if you're just appealing merit scholarship money, because that also might be the reason why even if a school might have a lower cost of attendance compared to the percentage of the discount that they're offering, why obviously you're so sensitive to the cost of attendance, because you are covering the cost of 2 students at school at the same time. So there's a question, and I kind of saw it scroll through several times, about private schools versus public schools. The private schools tend to be more willing to negotiate, if we want to use that word. But I do think that it cannot hurt to appeal to a public school. First of all, regardless of whether it's a public school or private school, if you've got a change in your financial situation, you should be appealing. So that shouldn't be taken, a hindrance of whether it's public or private. For merit scholarships, the public schools, will probably not have as much of a budget to offer an increased merit appeals, but it cannot hurt. You might be a little bit less successful at the public schools, but I would still try. I will say that, and I can't remember the names of the schools offhand, there are some specific schools, and then again, you can check the website, that they say off the bat, we will not accept any sort of appeals other than need-based aid. So they are making it very clear from the beginning that they are just not going to entertain any sort of conversation about increasing any merit that they might have given. It's a small number of schools that do that, but they are out there. So I'm just putting that out there in case your student applied to one of those schools. They might be pretty strict and say, we are just not going to reconsider any merit scholarships that we've offered. Okay, somebody wants me to go back on a different slide. Oops, sorry, I'm not sure which slides that you guys want. Can you go back and show the last 2 slides before the good luck one? Okay, whoops, my slides are really sensitive today. Sorry about this. Okay, so here's what can you expect? Sorry, I don't know. I'm not at my normal computer and it's very sensitive. Oh, we didn't really go over this. We kind of talked about it. This is the way that I recommend you structure the letter. Again, I kind of mentioned this, but at the opening, be really grateful. You did get some money. They did offer you merit scholarships. Acknowledge that and thank them. And then share how excited the student is to attend. Make it clear this is a top choice. That's why you're coming back to even ask for more money, but you really need to close the financial gap. Even though you might not have been eligible for need-based aid, it doesn't mean you don't have financial needs. I think every college recognizes that these days, that there is the EFC and the calculations and the CSS profile, and that determines one type of financial need. But even if you're not eligible for that money, most families are still, it's not easy to pay for college. So it's okay to say that, paying for college is a stretch, is a struggle, even though you're asking for more merit scholarship money. And then share the specifics of whatever offer that your student has also received. And then also, as Becca has mentioned, be specific about what dollar amount that you're looking for. You can go a little on the high side because, to most likely if they come back and they counter offer that. And if there have been any improvements to your student's academic situation, any type of improvements, definitely include that in the letter. So somebody's saying, should you include more than one offer? You can include more than one offer to show basically that your student has multiple choices. So I think that there's no harm in showing more than one offer. Is it okay to say it is one of the top choices? Is it better to say that they're number one? It's fine to say that they're number one. I think the other thing that is good to get across is that if the school meets whatever you're asking, that there's your student really wants to attend, that the only thing holding your student back is that they need a little bit more money to make this a better financial decision. Oh yes, we can email the slideshow, right, Becca? Or we actually we'll put it on. We put this recording on YouTube, and then we usually put the recording of the slide, just the slides on YouTube.
It'll be like a video, but it's just the slides. So it goes through a little bit quicker and you can kind of like pause on each one.
Okay, so I'm just going to read through some of the questions. The merit letter should definitely come from the student. I would actually say, if it's a big if your student can write the financial need letter, that even is a nice touch because it shows how much they understand. But if you're asking for financial need and you want your student to know all that information, that's perfectly fine too. If the financial need appeal comes from a parent, that's fine. The merit should absolutely come from the student.
I will say, if you want to do it that way with the financial need where the parent's writing the letter, your student can still write a letter explaining that they're interested and that they are just, on the fence because of the finances and, how much more they would need to cover it. So you're kind of writing the same sort of letter that you would be writing for a merit appeal along with the professional judgment.
Yeah, that's a really good suggestion. Thanks, Becca. There's a few other questions here. what if your student doesn't have any improvements, and really what is a good amount to ask for? How do you determine that? Your student doesn't have to have any improvements. Doesn't mean that they're still a good student. They might not have, had, many changes from when they sent in their application. The reason why you're writing is because A, your student might have gotten a better offer, or B, even if they didn't get a better offer, you can still explain that this is, the school that they want to go to. You appreciate the merit offer that was given, but it's still a little bit, out of reach financially. Is there anything that they can do to improve the merit scholarship money that's already been given? So it's you have a stronger case if your student has an offer from another school, but if they don't have an offer, I would still appeal. As you can see, my advice is give this a try no matter what your situation is, because again, the worst thing is that you'll get a no and you'll be in the same situation you are in now. And you've got so much more upside from getting $1,000 to maybe, more than 5,000, maybe even, close to 10, depending on how strong of a student your student is.
I see one that says, can I call the school and discuss need-based aid even if I haven't committed yet? And that's a definite yes. I would always suggest, understanding the award letter, and if you're going to appeal or discuss additional need-based aid, to talk to the school before making that commitment, because you don't want to get yourself stuck in a commitment to a school that's not financially viable. Like, you want to know that you're able to afford it before you're making all the deposits that are usually not refundable and kind of getting stuck in this mess later on, trying to find loans to cover the balance that are higher than what you would have preferred to take out.
So somebody's asking, would it make sense for a student to leverage the cost of a state school when appealing merit at a private school? Honestly, if you have a state school, I guess you're saying it's probably your state school, and that's why it's a lower cost than at a private school. I would actually still use that situation because basically that private school, whatever it is, in your family's dynamic, is competing against the state school. So either they're going to decide that they want your student strong enough, and they might either give you a better deal. Some private schools give enough merit aid to match the state school. So absolutely, I would use your state school if your student got into the state school as the comparison, because you're basically sharing with the college what's the decisions that your family is making. What are the colleges that they are comparing against, and what's the final decision set that your student and your family is deciding upon. Okay, just scrolling back to see what other questions there might be. How long does it take for a school to get back to you with a yes or no? Good question. Do you have any sense, Becca?
I would say for the most part, ours were about 2 weeks from when you submit it. And it really depended on how busy we were with them. So there were some times where there was only a couple letters to review. And then there were other times where there was probably 20 students that had submitted in the time leading up to the Financial Aid Appeals Committee, because it was a group of people on campus that would meet. So it really, as it starts to pick up throughout the spring and more people are submitting the letters, the wait time can go up along with that, just like any other processing time for documents.
So somebody is asking, can they add or suggest a college to our dropdown and compare college offers? Absolutely. If we're missing a college, please let us know. We've grabbed the list from iPads, but please email us at support@roadtocollege.com. We would definitely want to know that. And I'm just scrolling back on some of the questions, but I really want to emphasize, if anybody is confused with the award letter that they have been given, please contact us. We are really more than happy to walk through it with you. We'll try our best to decipher it, but at a minimum, we can tell you what questions you should be asking and calling the school to make sure you understand what's in that package. You answered that question, Becca. Can I call the school and discuss need-based aid if I haven't committed yet?
Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot too about, is it worth appealing if you've already received the highest merit scholarship at the school? I will say, I mean, I'm sure it's school by school. At the school I worked for, we did grant appeals to people who had the highest merit scholarship, because what we called it, instead of raising the merit, we would call it a Chatham grant. And it wasn't really a grant, it was more of a merit scholarship from the funds that we used for appeals. So you were still able to get additional money that way. It just was looking like it was coming from a different source, but it worked the same way as the merit scholarship and was renewable with the same way that all of their other scholarships were. So I would contact the school to see, like, do you still accept an appeal for additional aid?
So I think there's also been a fair number of questions about ED, early decision. I'll just read this one. I think there are probably similar ones. If a student was accepted early decision and has already had to commit, can you still appeal merit? Actually, in most cases, no, it's kind of a done deal. The fact that your student applied early decision by default kind of said whatever offer the college is going to give is the offer that you're going to accept. So you by applying early decision, you've signaled to the school already that if they accept your student, their student is going somewhat regardless of the financial package. The only way that a student is kind of released from early decision is truly if the financial package that the school offered is not feasible for the family, and that's usually only in the case of need-based aid. So if your family isn't eligible for need-based aid and your student applied early decision, then you're somewhat committed to whatever is offered. If there's merit money or not merit money, your student is supposed to be committed to attending. So that's why it's so important. I mean, we have families with seniors here, so we're kind of past that point, but if anybody's here with a junior, that is why it is so important to really understand the finances related to any school that your student is thinking of applying early decision.
There were a couple questions here about the merit letter that comes with the acceptance versus the financial aid package. Those are two different things. So the financial aid package will outline the full school's costs and then any additional aid that they are awarding. So they could be awarding you the merit scholarship through admissions. There could be another scholarship from the school, depending on how they award aid. But those are two different. I would recommend waiting until the financial aid package is received to appeal to the school, just because you don't have the full financial picture until then. But some schools do take longer than others to send that. You can ask the financial aid office what the timeline is and just make sure that they have everything they need for your student to send that out.
So somebody's asking, do you say which schools we received higher offers from? Yes, I would absolutely name the schools. Are merit scholarships offered when the school accepts a student into college, or is it sent later? It can be either, right? Becca, I've seen it where that's part of the acceptance letter, and sometimes it comes a little bit later.
Yeah, a lot of schools will send it out with the acceptance letter. I think it's more of like a tactic to get you excited and possibly have the student, commit before they get the full award letter that shows all of the financial aid and the cost. But they don't necessarily always send out the merit scholarship offer with the acceptance. It just sort of depends on the school and their process for sending out all of their notifications to students.
So there's a question here. Do state schools have any tuition wiggle room for out-of-state students? Maybe. Again, can't promise, but they might have a little wiggle room. Honestly, I know University of Pittsburgh has a little wiggle room. So it depends. Again, just think about this as a business. A state school is already getting a higher tuition from an out-of-state student. You're still going to probably be at a higher higher out-of-state tuition, even if they give you a little bit off. So they might have some wiggle room. Again, in this process, I say there is no reason not to try. So I would absolutely contact whatever state school that your student got into, even though they're out of state. Okay. So question, is the EFC based on FAFSA the same for every college? Yes, if you submitted a FAFSA, whatever your EFC is, it's going to be the same for every college that used the FAFSA. If you filled out the CSS profile, and I did see, and I can't remember, it scrolled by, somebody had said that their EFC was somewhere in like the $35,000 range, and then their EFC from the CSS profile was closer to 40,000. If you had to fill out the CSS profile, whatever your EFC that is calculated through the CSS profile is probably different than when the FAFSA is different than the government's FAFSA version, and it potentially is also slightly different from school to school. So if a school is using the CSS profile, they have their own calculation that they are probably doing that's slightly different than another school. And so your EFC at any CSS profile school will probably be different than the FAFSA, and it'll be different than another school that uses a CSS profile.
There's one, can you appeal, where did that go? To say top 3 choices, or should you limit to 1 choice? I say, I mean, you can appeal to more than one school using the other school's offers. I would say if you're writing the letters for those, to be very careful that you're sending the right letter to the right school.
Yes.
And not accidentally mentioning someone else in that letter or getting the offer mixed up. So you definitely want to triple check before you send those when you're doing more than one school at a time. I have received letters from students when I worked at Chatham that had other schools' names on them. So you just want to make sure you're not sending it to the wrong school. It's kind of like sending the text to the wrong person.
So there's a question about what if your student has already been offered the top, presidential scholarship from that school? Can they still appeal for more? Again, don't know how much more money the school is going to be willing to give if they've already received the top, but if the student has a better offer from someplace else, yes, I would still go back to that school, even though they were offered, the top award from that school. Okay. So somebody's asking that their student is an underrepresented minority. Can that be mentioned? Yes, I would absolutely mention that. That's that I would mention that because, that might be a reason why your student is more attractive to that college and might be more attractive to other colleges as, schools want to increase diversity and different populations. So I would definitely emphasize that. Okay, so tons of great questions here. I think since we're already over an hour that Becca and I will look through these. We will send out the recording tomorrow, but we will look through these questions, see if we can kind of combine some of them under common, categories and provide some more answers. But we actually have a lot of material on our website, on Road to College, related to financial aid appeals. Then we'll give you the links to that as well. So you're not lost. I will say, and it's just, sorry. We do have a service if anybody wants help, where we will guide you through what we just talked about tonight and make sure that you're pulling the right documentation and help you write your letter. I really am always, transparent. I think that depending on how comfortable you feel with what we shared tonight, as a family, you can absolutely do this on your own. But if you want another set of eyes to look at what you've written, if you want us to make sure that maybe it's as strong as possible, that's a service we provide. But it's completely up to you. Again, I think with a lot of the information we provided here, a lot of the information that we have on our website, this is definitely doable on your own. But if you feel like you want the extra help, we can also help as well. Okay, well, good luck, everybody. As offers come in, please let us know. we would like to, celebrate with everybody. Please share your information and compare college offers. We will keep reminding people to share the information. And if you need help just reading your offer letter, please let us know. Or if you want more specific help in making sure that your appeal is as strong as possible, we can help with that as well. Okay, everyone, have a good night, and we will see you soon. Thank you, Becca.
Yeah.